The night my son kicked me out, he didn't raise his voice. He lowered it, the way people do when they've already decided you're beneath them. "Abba, let's be realistic," he said, eyes flicking to the cracked tiles and my old suitcase by the door. "You can't afford to live here anymore, and honestly, you're holding us back." I was 72 years old, standing in the house I had paid for brick by brick, listening to my own blood explain why I was no longer welcome. My hands trembled, not from fear, but from the strange calm that comes when disappointment finally finishes breaking your heart. I nodded, not because I agreed, but because arguing with a man who's already sold his conscience is a waste of breath. I left that night with one suitcase, my prayer cap, and a wristwatch older than my son's marriage. He didn't help me down the stairs. He didn't ask where I'd go. In his mind, poor people always figure it out. What he didn't know, what no one knew, was that poverty had never been my reality. Silence was. 40 years earlier, I had built a small transport business. One bus became three became a fleet. When profits came, I didn't buy big houses or fancy clothes. I reinvested, quietly. When my wife passed away, I transferred most assets into a trust, not out of fear, but foresight. I had seen what money does to children when love stops getting them. I watched my son change slowly. Respect turned into tolerance, tolerance into embarrassment, embarrassment into contempt. My old clothes offended him. My simple food habits annoyed his wife. My silence irritated them both. So I stayed quiet. I wanted to see who he'd become without my shadow protecting him. That night I slept in a modest guest house near the bus terminal, the kind of place where the walls smell of soap and memories. I prayed Fajr with strangers who greeted me more warmly than my own family had in years. 2 weeks passed. Then my phone rang. "Abba," my son said, voice tight, "I heard you were struggling. If you want, I can send some money." I smiled, not because it was funny, but because it was predictable. "I'm fine," I replied, "but thank you." 3 days later, destiny chose irony as its weapon. I walked into a luxury car dealership, not to browse, but to finalize paperwork. The manager greeted me like family, ushered me into a glass office, and offered tea in porcelain cups. That's when I heard my son's voice. "Sir, what's the EMI on this model?" I turned. He was standing near a black luxury SUV, dressed sharply, confidence dripping from borrowed money. His wife stood beside him, already imagining Instagram captions. Then his eyes landed on me. Confusion, then disbelief, then embarrassment, sharp and sudden. "Abba," he whispered, "what are you doing here?" I looked at him calmly, "Buying a car." He laughed nervously. "Abba, this place is expensive. Maybe you're lost." The manager stepped in. "Sir, shall we proceed with the payment for your Bentley Continental GT?" Silence hit like a slap. My son's wife froze, his face drained of color. Bentley," he stammered. "Yes," I said gently, "cash." The manager nodded respectfully. "Your account transfer has already cleared, sir." My son took a step back, as if reality had pushed him. "But you said you were fine. You live simply," I thought. "You thought I was poor," I finished for him, "because I didn't dress like your friends' fathers, because I didn't show off." His wife tried to smile. "Abba, we didn't mean." I raised my hand, not in anger, but closure. "I raised you to value character over comfort," I said. "But somewhere along the way, you started measuring people by what they display, not what they build." Tears welled in his eyes. "Why didn't you tell me?" I looked at him for a long moment, because respect that depends on money isn't respect, it's rent. The manager handed me the keys. The car gleamed under showroom lights, but it wasn't pride I felt, it was relief. Relief that truth had finally stepped into the room without shouting. I turned to leave. "Abba," my son said, voice cracking, "please come home." I paused. "Home isn't a place where elders have to prove their worth," I said softly. "It's where they're honored without explanation." I walked out. A month later, I moved into a quiet house near the mosque. I funded scholarships for children who reminded me of myself, hungry to build, not to show. My son visits now. He speaks less, listens more. Sometimes that's how lessons finally land. He once asked me, "Abba, will you ever forgive me?" I smiled, placing a hand on his shoulder. "I never stopped loving you," I said, "but remember this, never mistake silence for weakness or simplicity for poverty. Some of the richest people you'll ever meet are the ones who don't need to prove it." And that lesson, unlike the car, is something he'll carry for life.